Welcome into the Lucas and Lucas podcast. Lucas Frankel, Mike Lucas here with you, where UConn wins their 5th national championship. That is fourth most all time. Fourth most all time after UCLA with 11, Kentucky with 8, and UNC with 6. Duke and UConn are now tied. Duke, UConn, and Indiana are all tied with 5 apiece. UConn is 5-0 in title games in program history. Mike, I've seen a lot of talk about this. I'm curious to see where you stand on it, and I think I know where you do stand on it. In your mind, are the UConn Huskies a true, bona fide blue blood in college basketball?
Before I answer that question, I just want to tell you, Frankel, that I'm disappointed in you. You did not congratulate me on UConn winning a national championship. That is my school.
You had them?
That is my home. I didn't pick them, but I did win the only basketball championship of my life at the Jim Calhoun 2009 summer basketball camp. I am a 2-time Jim Calhoun summer camp three-point shootout champion, and I'm the 2009 Jim Calhoun summer camp defensive player of the week. So when you say the UConn Huskies, you should say Mike Lucas's UConn Huskies. I am part of the championship culture inside Storrs, Connecticut. I am part of the banners hanging from the arena in Storrs, Connecticut. UConn is not UConn without me. Jim Calhoun is not Jim Calhoun without me. He doesn't retire unless he saw my greatness on that one summer day or week, I guess you could say, and eventually passed the torch over to Kevin Ollie. So to answer your question, yes, I am a blue blood. No, you are not a blue blood. And yes, the University of Connecticut has entered the elite class of elite basketball programs. And I think, and I'll keep this part short, they've won 5 in 24 years, and they've done it with 3 coaches. That means it's not one program or one. It's not Bill Belichick and the Patriots, where all their organizational success can be traced back to one guy. And I know the Patriots is Brady and Belichick, but one guy. This is 3 different coaches, 3 completely different styles of play. And I think the fact that they've done it 5 times in 24 years, no other school has done it more than 3 times in that span, does put them in traditional blue blood conversation.
I hear what you're saying, and the right answer is probably yes. Oh, they got 5 national titles. They're no doubt they're a blue blood. Like, it's, to me, that's sure. If on the surface you just look at that, you look at the amount of national titles they won. Yeah, sure, they're a blue blood. But to me, they are a massive level below the likes of Kentucky, UNC, Duke, and Kansas. Like, when those programs are playing, it's different. The vibes are different. The attention is different. And UConn's won, but like, if UConn is playing, Marquette on a Saturday at 2:00, it doesn't carry the same weight to me as like a Duke UNC matchup or a Kansas Baylor. Like, those to me, those are
well, but that's
matchups.
Because the Big East has been terrible for the last decade, and UConn has had its ups and downs for sure. But let's not put UConn's overall success, or let's not belittle UConn for its success over 20 years because their conference has been belittled. Think how good the Big East was. They did a whole 30 for 30 on the elite of the elite in the Big East. The beginning of UConn's run was in the real Big East when that stuff was must-watch TV. Didn't ESPN have the Big East Mondays or Big East Tuesdays?
Yeah, Big Mondays. A bunch of like branded days. Yeah, whatever it was.
Well, whatever it was, the Big East at that time was big enough to have its own branded day, and now, can you name 5 schools in the Big East?
Yeah. UConn, Providence, Creighton, Marquette, Seton Hall, St. John's. Like, I got rattled them off from top to bottom. Like, well,
good.
I'm an expert in this field.
Well, I'm glad you can. I bet you the majority of people do not know that Creighton is in the Big East.
Hang on. Do you know what I do for a living? Do you know it's like my job to know this stuff? And you're out here quizzing me about, do I know who plays in the Big East?
That's true. Yeah, listen, you're the wrong person to ask. I get that. But I'm just saying the general public does not know 7 teams in the Big East, 5 teams in the Big East, that Creighton's in the Big East, that Marquette. Do you know where Marquette is?
Wisconsin. Any other questions? Yep. Any other brain busters you want to test me about in sports today?
There's only 5 NBA players in the history of the league to win Finals MVP that did not go to college. Who are they?
Wait, hang on. 5 NBA players, 5 players to win what?
5 players in NBA history to win Finals MVP.
What to win Finals MVP?
Yes.
NBA Finals MVP.
Yes. Who did not go to college?
LeBron,
Yep.
Kobe,
Yep.
Finals MVP who did not go to
Yeah,
college.
come
So
on,
it's
come on. Smarty pants, hot shot.
you said there's 5.
There's 3 more. You did not name 3.
I don't think Garnett didn't win in 08 because that was Pierce. So
Correct.
Garnett is not a part of that list. Let's see. 03, 04, 5, 06, 07, 8, 9, 10.
It's a great podcast.
Well, Dirk technically didn't go to college.
Correct.
All right, so now we're going to now we're going to European guys. Okay, that's fine. All right, so there's 2 more. 12, 13, 15, 16. What, Tony Parker?
Yep.
And there's 1 more. I'm drawing a blank on the last one.
Moses Malone.
Oh, I would not have guessed Moses Malone.
Stump the Schwab. Okay. You're not as good as your job as you thought.
I got 4 out of 5. That's pretty
That was good.
freaking
No, that was good. That was good. That was more than most of the guys in the set got when I asked them that question.
Hey, like I said, what do you know what I do for a living?
We're both producers for sports shows. Yes.
All right. So UConn. All right. Here's where I stand on UConn as I sort of laid out before. When I look at the fabric of college basketball, I look at and you say UConn, yes, they've won, but I just don't. They're in the same exact categories that Duke, UNC, Kentucky, and Kansas. You put them in the same class of prestige and attention and national awareness.
No, but you also asked if they have blue blood. And it's like the Hall of Fame. You could be a Hall of Famer, and just because you're a 7th ballot Hall of Famer and you're in the same building as Michael Jordan doesn't mean you're on exactly the same actual status. It is, you're in the same building. I do think they're a blue blood, but my question to you, if that's how you feel, and I don't, for the record, I don't totally disagree with you on that. Can another team ever enter that echelon? Or is it going to take another 70, 80 years till 2110 for a team to have sustained success long enough to enter that category? Or are you saying the doors to being in that same category are closed for college basketball, essentially?
Well, so it's kind of interesting because I've thought a lot about this in the last 24 hours or so, but like Duke has managed to establish themselves as a blue blood after being a nothing program before Coach K got there. So it's certainly possible, but it would take I guess if you're asking me like what type of school would sort of be in the category to potentially get to it.
And your blue bloods was Duke, UNC, Kansas.
Duke, UNC, Kansas, Kentucky.
Okay.
To me are like those are the 5 like
not UCLA
college, and UCLA, yeah. Duke, UCLA, Kansas, Kentucky. Duke, UNC, Kentucky,
UCLA,
Kansas, UCLA.
Kentucky. Okay.
Those 5.
Yeah. So, and like, once again, I think there's different tiers of blue bloods. Those are the top, but like Indiana's they've been bad for most of our lives.
So the definition of a blue blood, I looked it up. I guess there's programs that are successful year in and year out and always seem to be in the national championship conversation. I think when you talk about those 5 schools that we mentioned, Duke, UNC, Kentucky, Kansas, UCLA, I mean, those teams are always they're always in the mix, in the picture. Indiana in the past, 15 years or so has sort of really fallen off and really hasn't been in a stage where they're, one of the truly elite teams in college basketball. Sort of after Bobby Knight sort of left that program, they haven't really been able to get back to that level. And then you talk about, I don't know, it's hard to see so schools have sort of fallen off. But I think, and UConn, 1 in 11 and 14, sort of out of nowhere in a sense. But in the grand scheme of things, like UConn really is not always in the picture. Like
they've been bad.
Since 2014, they really haven't, made a serious run. It's when they get get hot, they go all the way, or it's sort of nothing. It's sort of all or nothing for UConn. It's kind of a fluke, like the way Russillo was sort of explaining it on on his podcast today was like, it's like Oregon State, which all of a sudden winning like 4 or 5 national titles in like football or basketball. Like, I don't see Oregon. I think the Blue Bloods programs have already been established. It's like in the NFL, like they're always going to be these premier organizations, premier teams, the Cowboys, the Packers, the Steelers, the Giants. So those are like the biggest brand names. And for other, it's really hard to see a situation where other teams, other programs can, get that back to that level of
Yeah.
national
Well, do
attention
you
and
think
relevance.
on the NFL level, like, do you put the Patriots in that category?
No, not without Brady. They're gone.
What about the Chiefs? And listen, I'm not being an
No.
asshole to push back. Like, I'm genuinely curious. Because
No,
I'm with you. I think
I don't. I think when Mahomes leaves, like, I think the Chiefs as a brand, like, obviously they got a great fan base in Kansas City, but in terms of a national attention, like, they're just gonna dip back to like not irrelevancy, but just being back to just another team.
Look at the Colts. I mean, with Peyton Manning, perennial year in year out Super Bowl contenders. They become terrible. They get Andrew Luck, and now, I mean, it's not like anyone's clamoring for more. I want more Colts on national primetime games. Like, we don't see that. So, I'm agreeing with you in a lot of this. I just think there's not an exact box that Blue Bloods fit in necessarily, or the elite tier you want to call it, NFL Blue Bloods, hockey Blue Bloods. Like, in the NFL, was it the original six? Is that hockey? Like the original six?
Yeah.
And you're right. The Yankees will always be a blue blood in baseball because of the history. But, the Astros, based on what they've done, are teetering on entering a category. So you could be like, maybe we look at it like this, Franco. Imagine blue bloods and or whatever NFL teams, tier 1 franchises in football, baseball, whatever, are like almost like the night sky. And you have the Big Dipper's always there. And if you're a Duke UNC, like, you've established yourself as a constellation. And all these other schools, UConn may be it, is a shooting star. And right now it's visible, but it may not be visible forever. And until you reach, for whatever platinum status we want to call it, you're visible on some nights if the sky's right. And on other nights, you are clouded and you're unable to be seen. So I don't think there's a perfect analogy for it. But I don't think there's one definition of fit certain schools versus others.
Right. It's just hard. Yeah, I think that there's a clear like hierarchy of teams that no matter who the quarterback is, no matter what's going on with the team, they'll always be in that picture. The Cowboys, no matter what, will always be irrelevant.
Cowboys can be 3-13 and they have 6 primetime games.
Right. So that gives them blue blood status. Duke, UNC, Kentucky, Kansas, UCLA, those will always be blue blood programs. And then the other ones I just sort of mentioned were sort of fade in and out. But I just think UConn's a step below that. And yes, they've won a lot, but to put them in the exact same sentence as those other 5 programs that I mentioned, I think is a little unfair, despite the amount of success they've had. Anyway,
I agree.
Moving on to the women's game real quick. I know you love Caitlin Clark. She is I think the best way to phrase her is that she's the Steph Curry of women's basketball, just the way she plays, how relatable she is, how intense she is on the court, the trash talking and all that. What is your sort of takeaway on Caitlin Clark and the impact that she has on this tournament for women's basketball, which, by the way, said women's record with 9.9 million viewers?
I have been as big a proponent of women's basketball in both the college level and the NBA level as really anyone I know the last couple of years, dating back to when I started in College Station and covered the Aggies women's basketball team, and they were very good. Caitlin Clark we're talking about levels of greatness for Blue Bloods. There are good players, there are great players, and then there are transcendent players. Caitlin Clark, I think, is already at that transcendent level. I was watching the Bird and Taurasi broadcast of the Final Four in the championship game, and they were even saying, like, you can kind of tell who's going to translate to the next level and who's not. And Taurasi, who's entering her 19th year in the WNBA, one of the greatest female basketball players in the history in the world, goes, "Oh, she could be the best player on a WNBA team tomorrow." As in Caitlin Clark, who, broke every NCAA tournament record out there. The way she plays is infectious. And this is what I've always said about the women's game. It's not that it's less exciting. It's that there are certain things in the men's game that you just don't see in the women's game. Like, there's very few, if any, dunks.
The best part about the women's game compared to the men's game is the fact that the players stay and continue. Yeah.
And that's what I'm getting at. Like, Well, two things. A, you're right on that set. And the Iowa team has been playing together since they were 11 years old. That was an AAU team in Iowa that has literally grown up together from an AAU team in Iowa to now being the national runner-up, which is awesome. As far as what Caitlin Clark does on the court, though, Frank, she has moves, handles, and shots that are translatable to the playground. And when you watch the majority of women's basketball players, especially on the college level, when you get to the WNBA, it kind of sorts them out. A lot of them look robotic in their movements. And I don't mean that in a negative sense. I just think the way bodies are made up and movements, they just move a little more robotic. And Kennedy Carter at A&M, I always said, looks like Allen Iverson when she dribbles. Like the way she could move her body, get her hips to face a certain direction, cross over. It was different than how the other women on the court were moving. People love to watch her play, even if it didn't translate to winning. What Caitlin Clark has done is taken those same movements with a better jump shot and found a way to be a good teammate, an elite scorer, an elite passer, and more importantly, an elite winner. And that, I think, will inspire generations of young hoopers, male and female. Because did you hear her comments today about Angel Reese? She was on ESPN.
Yeah, she said that she is not mad at her and there's no ill will towards her.
Whether that's true or not, and who knows, she says all the right things. She does all the right things. She conducts herself in a way that, you would want to build a friend. And that's not a shot at Angel Reese. I have no issue with what Angel Reese did. I just like how Caitlin Clark responded in the aftermath of it. And I like what Angel Reese did too. Like, good for you. You win a championship. Go talk your talk. Go walk your walk. I love the whole thing. But like, I would rock a Caitlin Clark jersey out in public. I'm a dude. Like, I don't know how many guys would rock a women's basketball jersey out. And I think she would be the first one that a ton of people would buy. If that made any sense at all. I feel like I didn't make any sense with that, but I tried.
I mean, I think Sabrina's pretty cool. I think Brianna Stewart is cool. I'm just really excited for the New York Liberty this year. I think that if they don't win the championship, it is a colossal failure. Because they have, to be on paper, what is poised to be one of the greatest women's basketball teams of all time, with Jonquel Jones, Brianna Stewart, and UNESCO. Like, they should. There's no reason why they shouldn't absolutely dominate from start to finish.
Yeah, they're absolutely loaded top to bottom.
All right, let's move on to the National Basketball Association. My favorite storyline in the NBA in a really, really long time is the complete catastrophe that is going on with the Dallas Mavericks.
I know you chomping at the bit.
It is absolutely hilarious that they got Kyrie. Basically, they were locked into a playoff spot, and now they've gone 4-11 when Kyrie and Luka both play. And it just, to me, just confirms that Kyrie, it's a shame he hit that shot. If I can go back in time to 2016, I wish he would have missed that shot, because the whole Kyrie, with his reputation around the league, he would be so irrelevant, in my opinion, if that shot didn't go in and he didn't have that one championship, because ever since then, it's been a complete debacle. Everywhere he's been, every organization he's had his fingertips on has just gone down the toilet when he was there. And this is just the latest example. And I mean, before this, I loved Luka Doncic. I thought he was amazing. And now I was so happy on Sunday when the Hawks won that game in overtime. I don't know if you saw it or not, but it was
I did.
One of the wildest games of the NBA season. And the fact that they lost that game and Kyrie committed that stupid foul at the end, just completely unnecessary on Trae Young. I mean, I can't get enough of it. And the fact that they're even floating reports about them shutting down Kyrie and Luka for the rest of the season, so that way they can get potentially the 10th pick in the draft, because I believe if they miss the playoffs, then they get the 10th pick. But if it's 11 or higher, whatever, 11, it goes to the Knicks. So all of this is just hilarious, and I am relishing in the glory of the situation.
It is hysterical to me that despite the fact that he's putting up really good numbers.
Who, Kyrie?
Yeah.
He always puts up stats.
No, I know. And that's the part of Kyrie that will always forever be, when you look back on the history books, like the giant chasm between the reality and the stats, the box score. You look at the box score, and Kyrie Irving is putting up 20 to 25 to 30 points a game, shooting pretty efficiently from the floor. He's going to have a couple assists. He's going to give you average level of defense. He's not going to lock you down, but he's not an absolute turnstile for the most part. And somehow, despite trading their fourth best starter and their sixth man essentially, in Dinwiddie and Dorian Finney-Smith, for a guy who on paper is significantly better than both of those two combined, the Mavericks have nosedove. They don't play any defense. Luka has completely given up. Now, I'm not saying it's direct correlation to Kyrie. There's probably some other factors involved, but Luka looks uninterested in playing. And this is a team with a guy who I think most would say in Luka Doncic is a top 5 talent in basketball, right? Is that crazy? Maybe top 3? There is zero excuse not to make the playoffs, and there's a 5% excuse, or 95%. I'm saying backwards. There's no chance a Luka Doncic team should not make the playoffs, and especially with the play-in now where there's 10. There's 0% excuse, and yes, I know it's not probably all Kyrie's fault, but this team was in the playoffs when they acquired him, and they have fallen 7 spots in the standings since acquiring Kyrie Irving. It is not all Kyrie's fault, but I return to my value that for whatever reason, you may love him as a player, and you, as in his teammates, nothing he does on the court is conducive to winning basketball. Nothing.
So they got 3 games left in the regular season. They are 1 game back in the loss column of the Thunder, but the Thunder own the tiebreaker. So essentially, the Mavs would have to go 3-0, and the Thunder would have to go 0-3, I believe, because I believe that's the only way that the Mavericks would be able to get to that 10th spot. So they got a tall task ahead of them. Their last 3 games are against the Kings, the Bulls, all at home, and then the Spurs. So all winnable games. The Kings can't stop a nosebleed. By the way, the Sacramento Kings, another conversation for another day. They have no chance to win the title. I'm telling you right now, they can't stop anybody. And I watched a couple of their games recently because I had to pay extra close attention to them for snapping their playoff drought. And I am just so unimpressed with their ability to play defense. They can't stop anything or anyone. And if they need to stop, they will not get it. Yes, there are nights where they'll outscore the opposition and win the game, but I know they're highly rated in the West in terms of where they're at in the standings, but the Kings are. I don't think anyone
thinks they're going to win the West.
But I'm just letting you know my impressions of them because that's what I do. I educate on this kind of stuff. But in terms of the Kyrie and his future, the Mavericks missed the playoffs. He can't possibly re-sign with the Mavericks, and I know he's been so fixated on getting that max contract from somebody. What will the market look like with Kyrie? The first question is, do the Mavs resign him? Second question is, what kind of contract does he get?
But okay, I'm going to give you 2 answers, and it's a cop-out. You call me a cop-out on this. I don't think the Mavericks want to resign him. I think they're going to have to.
To what?
And I also think
to what kind of a deal? A 5-year, $250 million deal?
Do I think any team in the NBA would feel comfortable giving Kyrie a max contract? No. Do I think
it's idiotic. It's absolutely idiotic.
Yeah, I agree.
You can do for your team.
I wholeheartedly agree. I wholeheartedly 1,000 million bajillion % agree. However, we have seen that these star players, one way or another, will find their way to a place that will pay them. It's the trend of the league, and I do think his market is going to be much smaller than he believes it is. But it only takes one idiot to give a nincompoop a max deal. And there are teams that are desperate to sell tickets that need some sort of excitement. If you're trying to tank, who better to have on your team than Kyrie Irving? You can let him score 40 points a game, sell tickets.
Yeah, but Kyrie's not going to buy into that. There are 2 teams in my mind. I don't think if you're the Mavericks, you can re-sign Kyrie based on how much of a calamity the season is, assuming you miss.
But you can't let him walk for nothing. You can't.
What do you mean? But what do you mean? But like. Hang on. The whole walk for nothing approach to me is just wrong because the Nets would have been so much better letting James Harden just walk out the door and being like, goodbye. And if you can go back in time, the better move for the Nets would have been call out James Harden's bluff, finish out the season with him, and let him walk in free agency because the alternative of having to take on Ben Simmons' contract is exponentially worse than.
Well, yeah, but that's playing devil's advocate way
No.
later.
No. Hang on. Because if the Mavericks decide that they can't lose Kyrie for nothing, God forbid you lose Kyrie for nothing. And then let's give in fact what they give up. They give up Spencer Dinwiddie and Dorian Finney-Smith and a 2029 first round pick. They didn't mortgage their future for Kyrie Irving. If you re-sign him and because you're afraid of letting him walk for nothing, then you want to give him a 5-year, $180 million contract, you are handcuffing your organization much more than you would have if you just let him walk for nothing.
No, yes. But I'm not saying sign him to keep him. You have Luka Doncic and you have no draft picks. You have nothing. You've traded all your assets away. At least at a minimum, and Kyrie's not worth as much as he was, and I think his value continues to diminish as the teams he's on continue to be worse and worse. However, you still get a couple of things in return for Kyrie Irving, especially from a team desperate for some help at the deadline, just like the Nets got from the Mavericks in this first trade. And I think in the totality of it, while letting him walk is probably better for the team in the immediate future, you have Luka. You need assets to build. You need something to have in the cupboard to help him. And letting Kyrie walk is essentially you gave up 3 assets, a failed playoff run, and now you have nothing back to show for it. I don't think Luka and Kyrie works long term. I don't think he plays more than another half season in Dallas. But if I am Mark Cuban and I did give up, call them big assets, little assets, whatever you want to call it, 3 assets for Kyrie Irving in the trade with the Nets, you cannot just bring him in for half a season. It was a failed experiment and let him walk. You need to at least sign and trade him, bring him back in some capacity to then flip him for assets.
I understand your argument about needing assets, but if you're aside from like the Lakers with LeBron or the Suns with Durant, I'm probably going to be wrong on this, but I just don't see the argument for bringing Kyrie Irving into your organization. Why would any team want that, given the way the last,
because he's mesmerizingly good. He's obnoxious.
Yeah, but like, haven't we seen enough now? We saw him ruin the Celtics. We saw him ruin the Nets. Now we saw him ruin the Mavericks.
You were shocked the Nets got anything back for him.
Because when they traded him, Mike, he was playing great basketball and the Nets were winning.
He's still playing good basketball.
I mean, he's putting up numbers, but like he's doing nothing on.
Listen, Frank, I know you're in a happy relationship right now with your first like real girlfriend. The crazy girl will always find another boyfriend if she's hot enough. If she's hot enough, she will always find another boyfriend who will look at it and say, "Hey, I could be the one to fix her. I could get her to calm down. I could quote unquote tame the stallion."
But we've been saying this for.
If she's not hot, guess what? She ain't getting picked up. It's like quarterbacks. If Deshaun Watson wasn't as talented as he is, no one gives him that contract. No one touches him in the league again with 22 sexual mixed conduct allegations. Nobody. But because he's so freaking talented, you look past a lot of stuff. Kyrie Irving, based on talent's a top 5, 10 guy in the league. He is.
Not anymore.
Top 15, whatever. He's still a tier 2 talent in the NBA. Whatever rank, he's tier 2 talent. And I would argue talent-wise, he might be tier 1. That's a whole different argument. You give dudes with that talent as many shots as you can until you know for damn sure they can't play. And right now, he can still play.
I get what you're saying, and you're not wrong in the sense that like there's gonna be someone out there who just can't ignore the raw ability, and I don't disagree that he will have a job and there's going to be a team out there willing to give him, a contract to play basketball. But this notion about, giving him a long-term deal is just, if you were running a team, I mean, you may as well just sign your resignation papers because it's not going to work out. Like he's been put in the most unbelievable situations possible. Those Celtics teams with Brown, Tatum, Hayward, that was an absolutely loaded team, and he single-handedly brought them down. The Nets situation, the Nets were going to win the title last year with Durant, Harden. He was like, "Screw this! I choose to sit out," and it completely just ruined them. Then he goes to the Mavericks with Luka. On paper, should theoretically be an unbelievable 1-2 punch. If he can't win with Luka in that situation,
you're not wrong.
But I think this is the last straw. I truly believe that.
We'll see. And once again, everything you're saying, I agree with. Like, I am on your side. Lucas and Lucas teamed up here. We are not disagreeing. I'm just telling you, I know how this stuff works. They're going to re-sign him, and they're going to try to flip him for something. And some team's going to give up a first-round pick in 2028 and a bench guy for Kyrie Irving. and he's going to make his way around the league again. We got 7 minutes left, Frank. Let's run through some other stuff. I want to talk a little Yankees.
All right, we can. Well, all right. I guess we can skip ahead. And Ben Simmons, by the way, shut down for the season.
Who cares?
Just real quick, does he ever play for the Nets again?
Yes, and he's got one more chance if he doesn't produce and/or is the same. He just goes off and he buys an island and lives by himself.
All right, so Joey Gallo's been an absolute tear. I believe. Let me just check to see this, to see if my calculations are correct. There are 2 undefeated teams left in Major League Baseball: Tampa Bay Rays and the Minnesota Twins. And Joey Gallo is on an absolute mission right now. He's going to win AL Comeback Player of the Year.
Who's
I'm telling
he on?
you right now.
What team's he on?
He's on the Twins.
No, I had no idea.
3 home runs in the last 2 days. Just as blossomed back into the star player he was when he was with the Texas Rangers. Now he's with Minnesota, and I'm so happy for him, and I really wish him all the best with the Minnesota Twins. As for the Yankees, they're 3-1 on the season. Should be 4-0. That loss on Saturday. They're 3-1, Mike, but the one loss hurts like way more than the 3 wins that felt good.
It's one loss. We had this whole thing. We did the whole thing on the show today. No one game in the regular season means that much. So take a deep breath. I know you live and die in the Yanks, but take a deep breath. There is 157 games to go, Frank. You will be okay. What are your takes on Volpe so far?
I mean, he's been okay. He can steal bases and he plays a solid defense, but I don't know. It's still so early. I believe he has 1 hit so far.
Yeah. I like his demeanor. I like his demeanor though.
He has, we'll see. I mean, it's kind of a tough situation for him because Oswald Peraza is, to me, just as, highly regarded as a prospect and as a talent as Volpe. So we'll see what pans out with him, but so far so good for the Yankees. My biggest takeaway is they're too reliant on the home run. It's, they've been hitting a lot of homers, striking out a lot, and I've seen this movie 1,000 times, and I don't see any reason why this season is going to be different. That's sort of where I stand on it. Yeah,
it's funny. So being in Cleveland, their issue last year was they had all these singles hitters and they had no one to hit home runs. And the Yankees obviously were the opposite. And 4 games, depending on the team, into this year, Guardians still can't hit home runs and the Yankees can't stop from striking themselves out. Like it's a whole new season. It seems like nothing's changed for the 2 baseball teams I follow. And if you could combine the 2, you'd have the perfect offense. But it is all in on the power for the Yankees. It is all in on the contact for the Guardians. And with these new rules, I don't know how much it changes my offensive philosophy and what I actually believe is sustainable throughout a season. But I tend to think that you could be a lot more reliant on contact and extra base hits and singles and steals with the large bases, with the no shift and all that stuff, than needing to rely strictly on home runs to produce 60% of your runs. But I'm not overreacting to anything. I think the pitching's been pretty good for the Yankees. I loved what I saw from Cole in the opener. And Aaron Judge is on a mission again, man. That dude's so good. So freaking good. And Stanton grounding into the double play to end the game on Saturday. Like, no one in the history of New York sports, I think, has ever made me more frustrated than Stanton. I'm not going to lie.
I mean, Ben Simmons, Kyrie Irving are 2 names that come to mind, but that's another discussion for another day.
But for different reasons. Stanton always seems to be up with guys on base late in the game. And
no, that's not fair. That's not fair. It's just not fair. It's not fair.
I'm telling you how I feel. This is just how I feel. And he always seems to be up when I would rather have anyone else up, and God forbid he does anything.
No. Josh Donaldson's the one guy you don't want up because if there's a runner out there with less than 2 outs, he's going to strike out. Like it's pretty much a lock to me. That more so than Stan grounding to the double play. First of all, Clay Holmes, if he pitches a scoreless 8th inning, the Yankees win the game. That's number 1.
Fact.
Then number 2, Josh Donaldson. There was a situation in that game on Saturday. I believe they had runners on first and third with 1 out. Or I believe nobody out. I think actually Stanton got out first, didn't get the run home.
Yeah,
and then Donaldson struck out looking. And like Donaldson, when there's a big situation where you just need a guy to put a bat in the ball, the Yankees should pinch it for Donaldson every time.
Yeah,
that's where I stand on it.
Honestly, is it Perez the other shortstop? Is it Peraza or Perez?
There's Oswaldo Cabrera and Oswald Peraza.
I want Peraza to play third. Does he have any ability to play third base?
The Yankees could do that.
Then put those 2 in. Donaldson gives us nothing. I'm so over Donaldson, man.
And that will do it for this edition of the Lucas and Lucas podcast. Happy Passover, everyone. See you all next week when the Cleveland Cavaliers will play who are they going to play in the first round? Maybe the Brooklyn Nets.
The Knicks.
Or the Knicks. Cavs Knicks for first round of the playoffs. Let's make it happen.
Later.